mysteries abound around the world, from strange lights in the night sky to ghostly apparitions passing from one realm to the next. From the great pyramids of Egypt to what lies beneath the depths of Loch Ness. From Bigfoot to Atlantis, they are all mysteries waiting to be solved. Join Laurie Phillips, Lauren Smith, Graz, and Billy Simmons as they search for the truth on Night Callers Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. It's October 22nd and you're here with your hosts Lori, Lauren, and Graz. How y'all doing tonight?
Doing great. Doing great.
Good to hear, Graz.
I'm doing wonderful. I'm a little distracted. I'm on a message with Billy here. He's having issues with his computer. He's trying to sign in now.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. Wild Bill Simmons might be joining us if y'all are lucky. Anything new going on in y'all's areas?
Really nothing here. How about you, Graz?
No, I haven't made it out yet. I'm still trying to get that Squatchmobile up and running, but I'm having trouble finding parts for a 30-year-old truck.
I imagine.
Pain unless you know the right forums and websites.
Yeah. Well, try eBay. You never know.
No, it's all race car parts that I'm trying to wrangle up. Edelbrock stuff. I'm sure there's guys out there who know about Edelbrock stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to round up for it. Don't mind me. I'm a little distracted with Billy here. Keep on. Y'all chat for a second here.
Okay. Well, tonight we have a very special guest, Jeff Stewart from East Texas. In fact, he does not live but maybe an hour from where I do. Now, when we were trying to talk to him earlier, he was having some phone issues. So I hope that he will be able to call in. Why don't we check and make sure that he's going to be here before we introduce him? Let's just go in and check and make sure that. Oh, is he? Oh, he's. Well, let's see here.
He's got his question mark there. Good. Go ahead and mark him.
Jeff, are you there? Well, I'm trying to get him off mute. There we go.
Jeff, is that you?
I'm here now.
Yay!
It is.
Welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio, Jeff.
Thank you. I was trying to call in, and my phone decided it was just going to say, forget it, and it didn't want to work. So I had to get my wife's phone. So I was like, well, we'll get it straightened out one way or another.
Well, you sound great.
Yeah, you do. You're coming through loud and clear, and if it makes you feel better, I think we have a curse on us. The better the guest, the harder it is to get them on the show. So you're going to be great.
Awesome.
Yeah, you're going to be great. So, Graz, if you're ready, we would love to hear you read that intro.
Yeah, I put the phone down. I haven't heard back from Billy yet. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Night Callers Bigfoot Radio presents Jeff Stewart of East Texas. He was born in Carthage, Texas, and raised in the Sabine River bottoms. Jeff attended to... I almost did.
Been saying it right all night.
I know, you asked me 3 times. Tenaha High School. I suppose.
That's it, Tenaha.
Tenaha?
Yep.
That's it, Tenaha.
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 Tenaha. How. Anyway, he graduated from there in 1990. After graduation, he attended Baptist Christian College on an athletic scholarship for football, and also has further educational studies from the University of Colorado, Harcourt College of Veterinary Technology, and Panola College. He studied animal science. Oh, thank you very much. He studied animal science, wildlife resources, theology, electronics, and veterinary technician. He's also known to most as the Cryptohulk. He's a cryptozoologist and wildlife expert who was born in East Texas and raised in the Sabine River bottoms, regarded by many as one of the top wildlife experts in Texas. He's an expert in recognition of wildlife calls and sounds, and is an expert tracker, trapper, and hunter. And he's also a very talented writer. Appearances include Monsters and Mysteries in America, Survivor Man Bigfoot, and Finding Bigfoot. While Jeff has also been featured on over 100 podcasts and is a regular guest on More Outdoors with Chester Moore on KLVI AM radio in Beaumont, Texas. Jeff spends most days in the river bottoms of East Texas investigating the strange, weird tales which come from every corner of East Texas. Jeff is also an ordained minister and demonologist. Jeff is the co-creator of Monsters, Mysteries, and Mayhem on Facebook and www.monstercrypto.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Jeff, welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio.
It is my honor to be here.
We're honored to have you after that resume. Goodness.
He said Tenaha perfectly fine all the way up until.
Oh man.
Yes, he had it right. He said, "Is that Tenaha?" And I go, "Oh my goodness, yes, Tenaha." Yes.
Tenaha.
That's it, man. You can say it Tenaha. You can say it Tenaha. You can say it Tenaha. You can say it just about any way you want to. It's okay.
You can call me Ray. You can call me Jay. You can call me
exactly.
I was trying to throw him off.
You can say anything you want to. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Right. I was trying to throw him off with the Tenaha Tempted Bobo and Blair, but it wasn't working.
Right. The old Tex Ritter song is actually, Tex was born in a little town not far from Tenaha, Gary, just about 10 miles down the road from Tenaha. So that's where he come up with his Tenaha Tempson, Bobo, and Blair.
That's where that came from.
I was wondering. I always see that sign. I never knew what it was. Good to know. Thank you for that. If the rest of the show goes to pot, at least we got some good info there.
Just for future reference.
I doubt it's going to go to pot.
Oh, it won't.
He's not going to go to pot now. He's got a good phone.
Yeah, we worked too hard to get him on here.
That's right. And what's funny is I actually ordered a new phone because I've been having so much trouble with mine. I dropped it and got it wet, and it's my fault. But I ordered a new phone today, but doesn't do us any good tonight. So thank goodness my wife's got a good phone.
That's good. Yeah.
Hey, just one of the occupational hazards. When you're out in the woods and do stuff like I do on a daily basis, you drop phones in the mud, you drop them in the water, you you crush them, you break them. I've dropped phones from 40 feet up in a tree.
Dirt.
One phrase, Ziploc baggies.
I use Ziploc baggies a lot, but I tell you what, since I got a vacuum sealer, one of those Seal-A-Meals, and you can put a cell phone in a Seal-A-Meal and seal it, sucker up, and you are good to go for a long time.
Really?
And your touch screen even works.
I can't believe that. Really.
That's some backwoods wisdom there.
Sure not.
Oh man, you'd be surprised what duct tape will fix on a phone too.
Oh yeah, duct tape fixes everything.
I know everyone I know, if your phone doesn't work anymore and it's crapped out on you, you don't send it in, you don't throw it away, you shoot it. It's just what you do.
It helps.
Oklahoma thing.
It makes you feel better. It does.
Yeah.
It makes you feel better. Something about hitting a phone with a 44 mag just brightens up your whole day.
It does. You put a hole through it, and you're done and ready to move on to the next. And I feel the same way about TVs and anything electronic. Oh, computers. Yes, definitely. I'm sure Billy's actually doing that right now. That's why he's not here. He's out in the yard.
Hey, Bill, you with us?
Yes.
Did you make it?
Yeah, I'm in, but that's what I was telling Lauren. Don't be surprised if I get booted out of chat. My internet is dropping left and right, and I probably can't hook up in Skype, while we're doing this. I can run one thing, and that's about all it'll upload at a time. But I'm here.
Well, that's all right. We were talking about you anyway, so we don't want you in there.
No.
Ain't nothing unusual, is it?
Well, I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to get this show on the road.
Well, you want me to open, or do you?
Go for it, Mother.
All right. Well, Jeff, we're glad to have you on Night Callers Bigfoot Radio, and I'm so glad to have a neighbor, fellow East Texan, on the show. I've been really excited about this because we talk to people all over the United States, but it is a very rare jewel to have somebody from my part of the country. I think the closest I've come would probably be Brandon Garrett and Webb Quintel. Between those two, they were the closest to me. So you're actually a lot closer.
And actually, you just mentioned two very close friends of mine right there. So
really?
Yeah.
We love Webb.
Brandon, he and I have been friends for, oh my goodness, oh man, I don't know how many years we have been friends. And Webb, of course, I mean, he and I have chatted back and forth and exchanged information, I know, for at least 5 or 6 years. I mean, he is he is salt of the earth. Both of those guys are. They're salt of the earth.
They really are. They're good people. And we really try to have good people on the show. I wanted to bring this up. It doesn't really have anything to do with you or anything, but I did want to say this. I know I should have said it at the very beginning of the show, that in the course of searching for guests, I've had some people come back and say that they have been really mistreated on other shows, and they don't really want to come back on the show again. And I just want to say to anyone out there listening, I'm sorry that has happened, and that we always treat our guests with respect, and we're always good to our guests. And just want to say that. We'll never treat anybody bad.
I've had 1 or 2 shows. I've been on, goodness gracious, a lot of different, shows over the years. And, 1 or 2 that you'll say, well, I probably won't do that show again. But for the most part, I've really got to say, most people treat you really nice, but there's nothing like Southern hospitality.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
I mean, I've been on some shows from up north, a lot of shows up north, and a lot of those people, they're not really being rude to you or anything on purpose. It's just their way. The way they talk to you and the way they do, it's just their way. And us being from the South, we don't take it the same way that someone else from up north takes what they say, and so we get a little offended by it, but because we are in the South, it's just something about us that is born into us and bred into us that, you go above and beyond to treat your guest with dignity and respect.
That's right. And you're gracious. And
nothing against those other people, nothing against people from up north either, nothing against them. It's just how we perceive things being from the South and how they perceive them from being from the North, and it's just a difference there. And like I said, there's nothing like Southern hospitality.
Well, I don't know where that fits in with Seattle, but that's okay.
Well, y'all got that funny grass up there. Y'all don't really care about nothing.
Well, that's true too. We're real nice to everybody. Hi.
They're real laid back, aren't you, Grass?
Yeah, us Yankees, Billy likes to call me.
Hey, Seattle's got one of my favorite football teams, so Seattle's cool with me.
Mm-hmm.
No.
To talk about the Seahawks.
Yes, I've been a Seahawks fan, since way back in the day when Jim Zorn was the quarterback.
Oh my God, that's painful.
Wow, you are diehard.
Hey, I may be a Southern boy, but I'm a weird character because my two favorite football teams are the Chicago Bears and the Seattle Seahawks. So
the Chicago Bears, really?
Yes,
I've always
love
been
Chicago.
big Patriots. I'm a big Patriots fan. I've always been Patriots fan. So yeah.
Even though Chicago was
Green
having
Bay.
a bad streak.
Yeah.
Boo, Green Bay.
Well, this could be an interesting Super Bowl if we should get together. Well,
right now it's hard to decide.
I know. Well, Jeff, let's go ahead and get down to the interview. Can you tell us how you got into the field of Bigfoot?
Bigfoot, what's that? No, never heard of Bigfoot. What is that? Gosh, back, when I was a kid, parents would take us to the drive-in movie theater, and my dad had a big Ford Econoline van. Didn't have any windows at the sides or anything, but we would back that van up, open the back doors, take the lawn chairs out, set the lawn chairs out behind the van, and break out the ice chest full of snacks, and we're watching the drive-in movie out of the back of this van, back in the early 70s. And I can remember all those shows coming on, the monster shows and everything, and they were my favorite. I can remember seeing shows that had long since even been on television, but they would replay them at the drive-in theaters. And I can remember, seeing everything there. But I never thought that at that time that any of those old movies like that would have a bearing on my life until I was 15 years old. It was the mid-'80s. We had a hunting and fishing camp on the Sabine River. And when I say on the Sabine River, I mean you can spit and hit water. We have a cabin. We have 580 acres of land that is actually bordered down the entire one side of the property by the Sabine River. And my friends and I, we would go and we would camp out on this property just every single weekend, just about it. Well, one particular weekend, we had been fishing, and we had caught a bunch of fish, and we had brought them into camp, and we had an old hand pump well. And we had cleaned our fish, and we would leave the guts on the ground at that old hand pump well. And later on during the night, we would walk back over with flashlights and things, and we'd see if there were any coons or possums or maybe even a hog or something eating all those guts. And we would shoot them because that was how I made my money as a teen, is by selling coon skins and selling the raccoon meat. And if it was a hog, of course, we would eat the hog. But so we'd skinned them, we'd ate our fish, and it was about rocking on about 10 o'clock at night, and I decided, hey, I want to go over there and see if there's any coons at that gut pile. Well, my buddies didn't want to go. My buddies decided, hey, man, our bellies are full. We want to sit around the campfire and talk about girls or whatever we were talking about. So I grabbed my .22 and my flashlight, and it was about 100 yards over to that well pump from where we were camping. We had a little camp house there that we had built. And I walked back over, and as anyone remembers, back in the mid-'80s and stuff, we didn't have the flashlights like we have now. We didn't have the little hand flashlights that were 1,000 lumens, 1,500 lumens, and things like that. You had an old C-cell flashlight or D-cell that held about 2, maybe 3, if you were lucky, batteries, and it had a dim yellow light to it. It wasn't anything spectacular. So I took my light and I walked back over, and when I got about 20 to 25 yards from the gut pile, I could see that there was something there eating on the gut. So I raised my rifle, and I inched my way closer, slowly walking closer. And I thought at first I thought it might have been 2 or 3 coons kind of wadded up on the guts. But as I got closer, I could tell that it was kind of reddish-brown in color, so immediately I thought hog. And I knew that I had to get close enough to make a shot right behind the ear on a hog in order to put it down with a .22. So I inched my way closer, and when I'm within about 15, maybe 20 feet, I see it stand up on 2 legs.
Oh,
and it's looking at me. And if at first it does not register, Bigfoot doesn't register because that's not on my mind. I mean, yes, I had seen the creature from Boggy Creek, and I had seen creature from Black Lake, and I had seen all of those movies, but I mean, it didn't register that this is real, So I'm looking at this thing, and it facially, whenever I see people put up pictures of something that looks like a monkey, looks like a gorilla, I cringe because what I saw in no way looked like a monkey. It in no way looked like a gorilla in the face.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like a human being, but the closest I can get to it would be an Australian Aboriginal.
Yes, I agree with you there.
With the facial features. A human nose, but it was large and flat. But it was not overly large and flat, The lips were very large lips, but they were not beyond human parameters, and this thing, its skin was dark, almost a black, but when I say black, I don't mean black like as in an African-American looking black. I mean a mahogany looking shiny black, like almost looked like shined leather by the way it looked. It kind of had an oily look to it. And the hair around the face was very fine. It was long, but it was fine around the face. The hair on the rest of the body was clumped together. It was reddish brown, but it kind of had a gray look to it because it was clumped together with mud. And which anyone that has been in a river bottom in East Texas or Louisiana in the summertime knows that any animal out there wallows in the mud to keep the biting deer flies and mosquitoes off of them, ticks, whatever. So this animal looked like it had been wallowing in the mud, and its hair hung off of its body. It almost looked like dreadlocks, the way it hung off, the way the mud was clumped to the hair. And I remember looking at this, and I spoke to it. I had my gun raised, aimed right between its eyes, and I was like, "Mister, I don't know who you are, but I'm scared." And it just looked at me. And I'm like, "Mister, I'm fixing to shoot you." Because to me, this was still a human being. This was somebody playing a joke, which now growing up in the Sabine River bottoms, I had always heard the stories of old hermits that lived out in the woods and things like this, And so in my mind, that thought had come into my mind, this is like some old hermit that lives out in the woods and he snuck up here, and didn't dawn on me that this could be a Bigfoot creature eating my fish guts. So I spoke to it, and it did not return any vocalization whatsoever. It just looked at me. And I remember distinctly that I could see the whites of its eyes. It had brown eyes, but I could see the whites of its eyes. It didn't have the black-looking dead doll's eyes that so many people describe, and I've seen in lots of, pictures like Todd Standing's things that are supposed to be Bigfoot and what have you. Not saying anybody else's are wrong. I'm just saying what mine looked like. There were whites to the eyes. There were colored portions, what I could see in my flashlight. And I got louder, and I said, "Mister, I don't know who you are, but I am fixing to kill you." Because I was scared to death. I was a 15-year-old kid in the middle of the river bottom, and there was somebody that wasn't supposed to be there. And at that point, it took 3 steps backwards, toe to heel. Distinctly remember toe to heel. I remember seeing that. It never took its eyes off of me. And when it took those 3 steps backwards, it was within the edge of the tree line on that 3rd step backwards. And when it got in the edge of the tree line, it turned and walked away. It never ran. It never got in a hurry. But I listened to it walk away, and it just till it got out of hearing. I turned and ran over to my friends and told my friends, and they all were like, yeah, whatever, Stewart, tell us another one. You're just trying to scare us. Won't you lie to us some more? And so, I was like, man, y'all got to believe me, and they wouldn't believe me. I told a couple of more people, and they made fun of me and belittled me, and, yeah, whatever, lie to us again. So I just shut up, man. I quit telling people about it for years. And that was my introduction, to Bigfoot, basically. Find how do you do, face-to-face, 15, 20 feet at 15 years old.
Prior
and I
to
decided
this,
at that
you
point,
had never heard any stories about Sasquatch down in the bottoms or the woolly booger or the boogeyman or anything, any kind of stories like that prior to that? Wild men
Well, they always told stories about old hermits that lived down there in the river bottom.
Okay.
But, never really had anybody talk about anything right there on our property. Of course, I had heard, about the Fouke. We had watched, actually, the Boggy Creek. We had went to the drive-in and watched that and as a kid. And, I'd watched the old Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, Marlon Perkins, Going in Search of the Yeti and shows like that. I had watched all of those. But none of it ever struck home like right there on our property. I've been in those woods ever since I was born. My father started taking me hunting when I was 6 months old. He'd wrap me in a blanket and stuff me in his hunting sack and take me hunting with him as a infant. And so, I was one of those kids that by age 6 or 7, I had my own rifle and shotgun and would leave our home and tell Mama I'm fixing to go shoot some squirrels, and I could walk out our backyard and into a small patch of woods and, come back home with a half a dozen squirrels, 5, 6 years old. And I had never seen anything like this. I had never heard of anything like this being in my woods. It was always something that might be in somebody else's woods. Now, panthers were real to us. We'd seen the panthers. We had heard the stories of the panthers, but the Bigfoot was not until I was face-to-face with it.
Even though there's not supposed to be such thing as a black panther, but I can't tell you how many people have told me that they've seen those.
Yeah. I can actually show you my trail cam photos that I have shown to Texas Parks and Wildlife of
and you
a black panther.
Sent us one, actually, that's on the slideshow of a black panther. You sent us one.
And they told me that's a house cat, and I'm like, well, where did this house cat come from that's in the middle of 5,000 acres? Because that picture came from the middle of 5,000 acres.
Really?
Yeah, and that cat would have probably weighed somewhere in the 20 to 30 pound range. And then I've got another cat that which is taken on another piece of property, and there's a deer in the photo looking at the cat, and that cat would have to be 100+ pound cat, and it's solid black. And you show Texas Parks and Wildlife, and they tell you, oh, that's a house cat, or they tell you, this is photoshopped, and I'm sitting here going, well, I didn't Photoshop it unless someone took the SD card out of my camera, took it home with them, Photoshopped the pictures, brought it back down into the river bottom, put it back in my camera, and never said, ha-ha, I got you, or the joke's on you. Nobody ever sprang the joke. What would be their purpose? Because
exactly.
I know I didn't manipulate the photos in any way, shape, or form.
That's one of the debates.
Tell anybody,
what would be the Forestry Service purpose by denying those cats?
The Forestry Service, their Forestry Service's purpose, excuse my tongue-tiedness, is the fact that if you ever prove that you have a new species or an endangered species on your property, you can never cut the timber off of that property. You can never drill for oil on that property. You can never develop that property in any way, shape, or form if that endangered species is living on that property.
Kind of like the spotted owl thing.
Spotted owl and the ivory-billed woodpecker.
Yeah.
I don't know how endangered something is when it's been surviving all this time without people admitting it. It's like a Bigfoot. How could they call that endangered when they've been around for 1 million years? And they're still doing fine.
Exactly. And one thing that tickles me is I'm involved with so many different projects, and everybody's trying to get me on board with we need to get legislation going to protect Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And I understand the point, but I try to tell them, you do understand that just because science may one day recognize Bigfoot as being real, we know they're real, but science hasn't recognized them, But one day they will. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden they're going to become less elusive. They're not all of a sudden going to be able to start shooting them and trapping them and doing all of these things. I mean, just because a government agency says, hey, that's real, it's not going to make them any more visible to us. They're still going to hide just like they
for how many centuries, and they seem to be doing quite well on their own. Now, granted, there's a certain population encroachment and stuff, but they've got millions of acres of open land to be able to survive on their own. Now, I can understand getting repercussions for harming a Bigfoot.
Right.
If it's proven that you have actually harmed a Bigfoot, then I can understand having laws for repercussions. But all these fears about, they're going to close off most of the Rocky Mountains, because that's pretty much where they spread out. For an example, they're going to close off large sections of the Rocky Mountains just because Bigfoot's been living out there for 500,000 years. Just because
one of the things like
all of a sudden they're endangered.
Right. Well, see, like with the black cats, with the panthers, one of the things is like everybody says there's no melanistic phase of a cougar. Well, the thing is, I've never been one to say they are a melanistic cougar.
Right.
That's one of the falsities that everybody says, they're. The research that I've been doing, I'm trying to prove that they are a hybridization. They cross between the jaguars, which used to range all the way up through Texas and, up further into, like Arkansas and everything. The jaguars used to come way up in here. We already know that there is a melanistic phase of the jaguar. And the thing about cats is, cats can breed with one another.
When you say melanistic, you're talking about what do you mean by that phrase? Because I've never heard that before. Is that the color of their hair is like
black? The black.
Okay.
Whenever anything that has a melanistic phase, there is a black phase.
Okay.
So, like a solid black house cat is a melanistic house cat.
Okay.
We have gotten photographs on trail cameras of solid black bobcats in the wild. We have gotten trail cam pictures of black cats that can't be explained because they are the size of bobcats, yet they have long tails and they're solid black. Well, they can't be a jaguarundi because jaguarundis are not solid black. Jaguarundis actually are a gray, a dark gray to fawn.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about jaguarundis, not a jaguar, but a jaguarundi.
Oh, okay.
A jaguarundi is also called an otter cat. We have them here in East Texas, and they range all the way down into South Texas and around. They are a little bit smaller than a bobcat. They get to about 18 pounds. They have a small head and a long, sleek body, long-tailed. And they have the fur that is a dark, dark gray all the way up to a kind of a fawn-colored fur, but there's no melanistic face. They're not black. But the thing is, if a cat can breed with another cat no matter what they are. A house cat and a tiger could actually breed with one another if the coupling was physically possible. The sperm could fertilize the egg. It would not probably have a survivable offspring because of such difference in their size. But if you took two cats of a not too dissimilar size, like, say, a jaguar and a mountain lion, a cougar, if they were to ever breed, then you would have a cat of that size that would have an offspring that could have the melanistic gene either, dominant in the cat or subordinate in the cat. And it may not show up for many generations. So that cat could have been bred 20 generations ago, and it just now show up.
That makes sense.
So in the cats, it doesn't necessarily have to be, right now. It doesn't necessarily have to have happened today. It could be a latent gene from generations back because it bred with another cat. And we all know that, if you have house cats in the yard, if your female house cat gets in heat, in estrus, that there will be tomcats come from miles around to try to get to her. And you would have to expect that to be the exact same way in the wild.
All right, so what brought you back into Bigfoot?
Good question.
I went for a long time, and I didn't tell anyone much. I told my parents, and of course, my mother, she always supported everything I did. My dad, he was more down to earth, and he was like, boy, you need to get them stories out of your head. People are going to think you're nuts. Well, one day, about 10 years after that had happened, my father and I had been on a fishing trip down on the Sabine River, and we had caught a very large number of fish, probably about 150 pounds of catfish, and we didn't feel like cleaning them. It was cold. It was February. So we put them in what we call a live box, which is basically the chicken coops like they used to catch chickens and haul them to the processing plant in. We have some of those old. They're made out of fiberglass, kind of a fiberglass plastic material. And we have two of those that are made together, and it weighs about 30, 40 pounds. And you float it out in the water full of fish, and it keeps them alive until you're ready to clean them, to skin them. So we caught our big mess of fish, and we put them in that box and floated them out in the water. I had about 20, 30 feet of rope on it, and I tied the lid. I can tie knots very well. Tied a clove hitch around it with a half hitch on top of that. We left. Well, the next day, my dad said, hey, let's go down there and get those fish and let's clean them. So we get down there about 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was a very cold night. It was down to freezing, below 30. When we got down there, the frost was still on the ground, and our box had been pulled completely out of the water. And the lid was open on this box. And the first thing my dad and I said is, man, somebody's done come down here and stole our fish. Now, we're behind 3 locked gates through a mile of dirt roads, and nobody can get in there. I mean, the only way they could have got in there was if they had driven a boat up the river and then walked 2 miles to our fish box. So we walked up to the fish box and start noticing that there's catfish remnants laying all over the ground. And you could see where bites had been taken out of these catfish. And it looked like, basically all the soft, fleshy parts had been eaten, and the bones and the heads had been thrown on the ground. And when I looked at the lid, you could tell that something had untied the knots to open this lid. And the lid also had a spring-hinged lock mechanism on it, where it had a lip that you had to pull the lid back against a spring and then lift up on it at the same time to get it to open. And I'm looking at this, and my dad's going, hey, look at this stuff. And I walked over, and where my dad was standing, there were footprints all in the mud. Now, we're talking barefoot-looking human prints in the mud, and we're talking about in 30-degree weather. And you're asking yourself, who in the world is walking around down here barefooted in 30-degree weather in the river bottom eating raw fish out of my fish box? My dad turned to me, and he looked at me, and he said, it's true. And I said, what's true, Dad? He said, those stories you tell, that stuff you talk about Bigfoot. He said, it's true. He said, that's the only thing that could have done this. Unless, he was like me, unless there's, some crazy human being walking around out here barefooted in this kind of weather, eating raw fish, he's like, that's the only explanation. Well, at that point in time, I was probably about 25 years old. That's when I decided I was going to learn everything I could about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, skunk ape, whatever you want to call it. The Bigfoot was fixing to be my passion, because this is something that I just couldn't wrap my mind around. That there's something down here. I've been down here my whole life, and now all of a sudden, this has basically been put in front of me twice. So there's some higher power out there that's wanting me that's telling me, boy, you got to get on the ball and you got to do something. And so I started studying. I started reading everything I could about it. I started utilizing my knowledge of hunting and trapping and everything to start looking at what I used to not notice. The things that I used to would say, just, a deer did that, or, raccoons or whatever did that. I would start looking at it closer and finding the evidence that it wasn't a deer, it wasn't a raccoon. Those trees that were broken over that made no sense that they were broken over in the forest. You got a tree that's broke half in two, a green tree that's broke half in two, 6 foot off the ground. And it's as big around as my wrist. And I'm a huge, strong man, and I couldn't break it. And did you at this point, or during the course of your learning, did you start to reflect on things that you may have dismissed as possible Bigfoot activity, but you just assumed it was something else, just kind of pawpawed it off, that you may have had some encounters? Yes, ma'am. There's lots of things, noises in the middle of the night when I was camping that, I said, that had to be a coyote, that had to be this, that had to be that. But deep in my heart, I knew that I've never heard a coyote make that kind of noise before. So it's like, okay. So then I started studying known animal sounds, and I would sit for hours and hours and hours and just listen to all the recorded sounds of one particular species until I would know the sounds that particular species made just at the snap of a finger. If I heard it, I immediately said, that's a fox. That's a coyote. That's a bobcat. That's a this, that's a that. All the way from songbirds that are native to East Texas. I mainly focused my studies on everything that was native to my area. That way, when I went out alone and sat in the woods, I'm sitting there and I'm listening with my eyes closed, and I can hear all of these different animals. And then I hear that one animal that I can't put my finger on. I can't say that's it exactly. And sometimes they make sounds that sound just like a known animal, but if you know what that animal normally sounds like, it almost sounds like somebody is out there mimicking that animal.
And I've heard that myself. My dog's trying to sneak up here. Get back downstairs. Back 10, 15 years ago, I used to hear imitations of animals that would morph into other imitations, such as I would hear a rooster crowing
Yes.
that would morph into what sounded like a cow mooing, or a dog, like a real weird dog bark that would morph into a crow calling. And I don't really hear that much anymore. I think that they don't do it as often, at least in this area, as they used to. But I remember one time we were on a four-wheeler. It was like a four-wheeler convention where there was a mud hogging on the Sabine. And we had gone there, and, of course, they had a band, and they had bikers there, and it was a lot of people there. But I remember I had kind of gone to the outskirts of the whole, we'd been riding all day, and I wasn't really interested in the band and everything. I was more interested in the area, being right there on the river. And I got as far away from the band as I possibly could, but you could still hear it. But I could not believe the vocals that I was hearing. And I had no equipment with me or anything. I didn't even think about bringing anything out there, and I was just amazed. And I've always wanted to research on the Sabine, but it's just finding a way to get in there. It's practically locked all the way up and down unless you go on Toledo Bend or something. It's really hard to get down into the Sabine. And it's kind of treacherous, too, because you have some sordid people that stay on the Sabine, so, it's kind of dangerous.
Yes, ma'am.
It is kind of dangerous. They are very backwoods and kind of wild. And so, you just really, I've never had the opportunity. So to have somebody on here that has hunted and fished and stayed on the Sabine is a treat for me. And I'm just full of questions, so I hope you don't mind if I ask you a few.
No, ma'am.
My first question is have you ever been roared at? And the reason why I ask this is because I'm curious as to the temperament of the Bigfoot on the Sabine. Are they aggressive? Are they passive? Territorial? What can you tell me?
The ones that I've come into contact with, I have not felt in danger at any time. I have not felt threatened. I have not felt like they have perceived me as a threat. Even though a lot of times I'm armed in the woods. I think I've been in these woods, like I said, since I was 6 months old. So I honestly believe that they know my scent, and they know that I pose them no threat because I have been in these woods almost since birth. And for 43 years, basically, they have smelled me in this exact same patch of woods, and I think they think me a part of the woods as much as themselves.
Right.
And so they have not shown any aggression toward me. Took a film crew out a few months ago, and while we were out in the woods filming, they wanted me to call in some owls and things because I do a lot of animal calls and can actually call in a lot of animals. And so I called in an owl, and it landed in the tree over our head, and then I switched from the owl call to a rodent call, and then I got the owl to land on the ground a few feet from me. And we're filming this, and we're looking at this, and at the same time, the cameraman is looking another direction, so I wanted to get his attention, and I turned and I whistled at him. I went like that. And about 50 yards in front of me, you heard come back.
Oh.
And the cameraman turns and looks at me, and everybody just stops looking at the owl, and everybody's looking at me, and they're going, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Yeah, I heard that." And they're like, "What is that?" And I said, "That is a Bigfoot, one of the Bigfoot that live on this property." And they're like going, "Can you do that again?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I whistled again. It answered me. For about 15 minutes, and they got it all on video, they got it all on audio. For about 15 minutes, we whistled back and forth, and I would whistle a different tune every time, and it would answer me, pitch for pitch, note for note, duplicate me exactly. And they're all going, "We've never in our lives heard or seen anything like this." And I'm going, it's pretty cool. And they're like, "Well, can we get them on, can we video them?" I said, "Nah." I said, the minute any of us got up and walked toward them, they would leave. And they're like, "How do you know?" I said, "Because they've basically over the years," and I'm not going to say I believe in habituation or anything like that. I don't. These animals are not habituated to me. We're not friends. We don't sit around the campfire together and drink coffee and sing Kumbaya or nothing. These are just creatures that know me and know I belong on this piece of property. And I'm like, they have boundaries. They came in to us. If we go after them, they will leave. Mm-hmm. And we sat there and we went through the whistling things, and and it just as abruptly as it started, it just stopped. And I said, "Okay," I said, "I want y'all to do me a favor." I said, "Don't take my word for it." I said, "Research birds in East Texas and animals in East Texas. I challenge you to find any nocturnal bird that can mimic the sounds that I was doing exactly. Find one. Research it. Find one. If you find one, I want to know about it, because through all of my years, there is no nocturnal songbird in East Texas that can copy. At one point in time, I was like going, and off 50 yards out in the woods, you hear,
"Oh my goodness!"
Wow. And these people, that were here with me filming me, they were from a network, and they were like going, "You're the real deal." You've got somebody out in the woods, or you've got somebody out in the woods that's just playing us, Well, I think if I was a skeptic, that's the first thing I would think, Well, see, they thought of that. They thought of that. And, and I told them, I said, "Well, I'll tell you what." I said, "Walk. Take your camera." I said, "Take your night vision. Take anything you have." And I said, "You're welcome to walk through these woods all you want to. Find somebody. Find the person that's doing that." I said, "Because I'm going to tell you what, if you do find somebody," I said, "I'm going to whoop their rear end because they're trespassing on my property." The butt whooping that they're going to tote is going to be far worse than anything you've ever seen before. You may want to get that on camera. You're going to be able to sell the heck out of that footage. Oh, my goodness. I've had them bray at me like a donkey.
Oh, yes, I've heard that. Also, I've heard them do an elk when there's no elk around. There's no elk down here. Yet I've heard them do elk. And
I have heard I've heard all kinds of things out in the woods. I have heard the last time we had a film crew down here was just in July. And they wanted to go with me, and I took them out, and I took their producer with me. He wanted to go out, just me and him. and I took him down to one of my spots. And while we're sitting there, we're in the middle of the river bottom. You know, there's the closest dwelling is about 4 miles away, or 5. And so we're sitting, and that's through the river bottom. And we're sitting on a log, and all of a sudden you start hearing laughter coming from about 100 yards through the woods from us. And he's looking at me, and he's going, "Is that someone laughing?" I said, "Yeah, it is." And he said, "You don't find this strange?" I said, "Yeah, I do find it strange." I said, "But, I mean, I'm not bothered by it." And then...
Did it sound like human laughing, or was it like...
It sounded like a hyena, to tell you the truth. It sounded like an African hyena, a spotted hyena. You know, it was more of a... that kind of a laugh.
Oh, that gives me goosebumps. Oh, my goodness.
You know, and we're sitting here, and we're talking, and I'm like, well, you know, just listen. You got your recorder going. You know, record everything that you're hearing so we can analyze it, or you can analyze it later. And we're listening, and all of a sudden, I couldn't hear it. But through his headset and his parabolic microphone, his dish, he could hear talking. And it was a chattering, and it was he gave me the headphones, and I put them on, and you're sitting here, and you're hearing this. I've never heard another language like it. It almost sounded like, I really don't know what to tell you it sounded like. It was like more, you could tell it was two individuals talking to each other or making noises back and forth at each other. But it was more of just a, it was totally sounded like you were almost playing a record backwards to the sound that you were hearing. And we listened to this for about 15 or 20 minutes, and during this, you would hear that back and forth, and then you would hear the laughter, and it just kept going on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, about 400 or 500 yards in a different direction from us, we got a long, loud, guttural howl.
The siren.
They shut up.
Yeah.
Everything in the woods shut up. Everything. He said, "What was that?" And I said, "Something just smelled you." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You stink." He said, "What do you mean I stink?" He said, "I had a bath." I said, "Exactly." I said, "You probably washed your hair in some really nice smelling Axe or some other manly shampoo with a good manly scent to it." I said, "You probably washed your body with some Irish Spring body wash or something like that so you'd smell really good. When you left the house, you probably put a little aftershave on or something like that. Your clothes are washed in, a really good spring-smelling fresh linen or whatever." I said, "That stinks to them. To wild animals, that stuff stinks."
Oh, my goodness. I never thought about it like that.
When I go out, I live my life where I do not use anything that is scented. My clothes are washed in unscented detergents. I use unscented soaps, a lot of homemade soaps, but I use unscented soaps in the bath. I use unscented hair products, if it's, shampoos, conditioners. The only things I do use is vanilla scented, because just about every animal in the woods loves the smell of vanilla. For some reason, they love vanilla. But I will use a little vanilla scented, shampoo or conditioner or something. But for the most part, especially this time of year when I'm in the woods a lot, everything is all natural and no scent whatsoever. I don't allow scents to even be used in the house while I'm doing my research. No perfumes. Don't spray perfume anywhere near me. Don't use any kind of deodorizers for the home or things like that, because they smell these, and to them it's offensive. It's very loud, very, very odoriferous. And I use natural things, sweet gum, leaves, I will take sweet gum leaves, and I boil the sweet gum leaves, and I make a tea, basically, out of the sweet gum leaves, and then I bottle that up and use that to spray on my body so that I basically smell like a sweet gum tree.
Oh, thanks.
And it's a natural, it's not a store-bought chemical that you're putting on your body. It is a natural, from the tree chemical. And you don't even have to make that. You can just go out in the woods, find a sweet gum tree, get a handful of leaves, rub them in your hand, and smell them. They're very strong. And then just rub that all over your body, on your hair, because that's where about 80% of your odor that they're going to smell is going to come from your head, you exhaling, and from the top of your head.
Oh.
I can see that. Y'all don't mind, we could take a break there and go to intermission and catch it on the other side.
Yeah, I don't want to go to intermission, but we need to. I know everyone out there probably needs to take a break, go get something to drink, but I could listen to Jeff all night. Just fascinated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff. All right, so I'm going to take us to intermission. You guys go get something to drink, and we'll see you on the other side.
All right. See you in a little bit, Jeff.
Okay, great.
Okay, we're back. That was a nice little intermission. I hope everyone got everything and is back to hear the show. Jeff, are you back with us?
I am back, and y'all got to tell me, what was the name of that song that was playing?
All right, which one? The first one or the second one?
The one that just ended.
Our little, let's see, One Horse Town. And I'm trying to remember who sings that. One Horse Town.
Good song.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought of you when I found it. I thought Tenaha is like a one-horse town.
Well, see, I'm odd now. I'm about the biggest redneck you ever seen in the world, but I do not listen to country music. So I heard that song, and I was like, man, that's a good song.
Well, most of the time we play Southern rock or old-time rock and roll on this station, you know, so that was a little more country than... Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, now, when I say I don't listen to country music... That's a little more country
than what we usually play. But.
Well, when I say I don't listen to country music, I don't listen to modern country music.
Yeah. It sucks.
I am...
There you go. That's right.
I'm a metalhead, basically.
Really?
But I love Southern rock. I love Southern rock and some of the older country. I mean, because, you know, I mean, Johnny Cash, I mean, he was really, he was heavy metal before there was heavy metal.
Yeah,
by his actions, you know. Waylon Jennings and all those guys, I mean, they acted the metal part. They were just singing country music. But, you know, those guys, I mean, I can get into a little bit, but for the most part, I mean, when I say I'm a metalhead, I mean, I'm talking about the stuff that you listen to and you go, what in the world is that guy growling about? You know?
Oh, my goodness. Grant, do you have any questions? Or because I have a million.
I'm enjoying listening to you two talking about the Sabine.
Oh, my God. You know, I have researched the Natchez. I've researched the Angelina, and the sulfur, but I've never got to research on the Sabine. It's on my bucket list one of these days. I'm going to find my way to the Sabine and research
Well, all you got to do is just give me a heads up and tell me when you want to go, and as long as it's not in the middle of the hunting season.
No.
I do have people that hunt down there with me, and in all honesty, on my land, they disappear. They know whenever hunting season's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they just kind of fade back deeper and deeper into the middle of the swamps where they know nobody's going. And they stay there until hunting season is over. And the best time on my place to get out and go and do a little research and have some fun and just enjoy it is February through April, when
Wow.
the weather is cold. The weather's cold, and then it starts warming up and things start greening up, and that window between February and April, I have about 80 to 90% of my sightings and my activity and cast tracks and do all of the fun stuff.
And that is the time of year that nothing is going on where I'm at. Because where I'm at, the hottest time of the year starts in end of July all the way through November or December, depending on how cold it is. If it's really, really cold, it even is less than that. Usually it ends in November. And then the rest of the year, in the spring, I'll have a little bit of activity when the blackberries are out. I'll hear stuff. But it's just pretty, I don't know where they go. And I know that they're not migrating anywhere, I don't think, but they're going somewhere else. And they're just not in this area. So I don't know.
Well, my research, and of course now when I speak about research and things, I do not speak in absolutes because no one knows absolutely 100%, and I do not believe in saying it's a known fact that Bigfoot does this or it's a fact that Bigfoot does that, because there are no facts when it comes to Bigfoot as of yet. I mean, we see what we see and we gather our data, but we can't speak as an entire species. Just because the creatures that live on my land do a certain thing, I can't say that the ones that live on your land do that same thing. So, where you have activity that is hot in certain months and mine is cold. So, I'm a believer that, in some places they may be a little nomadic. They may move. Places where, in the summertime, say like in Nevada or Arizona or somewhere like that, where the summertime is so hot and there is no water, they may have to follow the water. They may have to be nomadic to an extent. I think that their nomadic behavior is more out of necessity than it is out of anything else, because they follow the water. They follow the game, because the game is following the water. The fruit, the vegetation is following the water. As the water dries up in one spot, and the water's no longer here, but it is over there, they're going to go over there. They're not going to stay over here and die of thirst.
Well, I have found that activity increases in state parks during hunting season.
Yes.
Because there's no hunting in state parks.
Mm-hmm. I mean, these creatures, you've got to think, they've got to be so smart. And everybody says, I've had people say, oh, they're not that smart. They're just, going on instincts. And I'm like, well, where do you think intelligence comes from? The base of intelligence is instinct. I mean, they know that, look, I've been watching, for generation after generation after generation, they know that when people are shooting guns over here, nobody's shooting guns over there. So we go over there because there are no guns. They don't see, George and Tom and Bob climb out of the Ford with enough guns to, go kill ISIS. So they know that they can go over here and be relatively safe.
Yes. Yes. Bill, you have a question.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Bill, I swear he was dead when I got there. I don't know what happened. No. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
You're talking to a former cop, so that was a good answer.
Yeah. I've had a lot of similar experiences. I'm just not too far out of Paris, Texas here.
Okay.
And I'm all on the sulfur on this end of the state.
Yeah.
What have you found in the way of stick structures and things like that in your area?
Really, the strangest find I've ever had on any land that I've had access to as far as stick structures have been what I described back in my younger days that I found. I described them as beaver huts on the land.
Yes.
Because I didn't know what else to describe them as, because it looked like a beaver hut that you would find out in the middle of a slough or a swamp, but it was up in the middle. It was in the middle of the woods somewhere, and there's no logical explanation for this. And I mean, I've climbed up in the middle of them, you know, and I mean, I'm a big guy, and it was hard for me to wedge myself up in it, but I did. And I mean, there was nothing out of the ordinary up in there. I mean, once I got up in there, heck, I could have slept in there quite comfortably.
Right, sure.
And that's the strangest. Now, I've found a lot of snapped trees. Haven't really found the X marks the spot ones, like I like to call them, from say up north, you know, like the far north, like in Canada and places like that. I don't find those here, but I do find the occasional tree that is snapped in half, say 5, 6, 7 feet in the air. And at times I will do experiments because I will take that same tree and I will try to, like the half that's like laying down, I will grab it and I'll try to snap it with my hands. And you know, see how difficult it is. I'm not your average person as far as strength goes. I am very, very strong. And, you know, I can't snap these things. And if I can't snap it, I'm sitting there going, what snapped it? Because there's no other animal that lives in the East Texas woods that's going to be stronger than me, that's going to be tall enough to grab that at that height and break it. And it's easy to check with the Weather Service and see if we've had any kind of winds in recent past that could have done that. But if you look around and no other tree anywhere near you is snapped off like that, you're going, wind is really probably not your culprit. So what's done that? And so, like I said, I find the occasional, you know, snapped off tree and the beaver huts, as I like to call them, that are on dry land.
Yeah, because I found one up in this area in the middle of the woods, and like you're saying, a beaver hut is a great way to, you know, to explain it. And this thing was even built actually on the north side, you know, offering protection, you know, from the north wind. And this was an area that I was hunting on a lease, and I mean, it just showed up, you know, one day when I happened to be strolling through there. I've been through there quite a bit. And, very interesting. That is the only one I found. How about bedding? Actual beds, I guess you would call them, where they or any. Have you seen any thatch work where they've woven stuff, you know, together, small limbs, things like that?
Not on any of my property. Now I have had people take me out to their properties where they have found things like that. And anytime I go out and someone's taking me to show me this, of course I have to go out with a certain amount of skepticism, because, you know, you've always got to have it in the back of your mind, okay, could someone have done this and be trying to bring me into a hoax? So, you know, I was very, very wary of that, you know, but me personally, I haven't found them. Now, I have found lots of bedding areas especially up in the pine thickets, where, you know, you go in there and something has bedded down. I have taken hair samples from these bedding areas, and, you know, sometimes the hair samples turn out to be, you know, deer and everything, which I'm lucky I have microscopes and things set up in my man cave, so to speak. I have my own little laboratory in there, and I do keep a database of known pictures of hair from animals that are indigenous to East Texas. And so I can compare the morphology of the hair that I find to the hair that I have in the database. And so most of it turns out to be deer or hog or something like that. And I've had 3 hares that I've collected in the past couple of years that did not match any hair whatsoever that was on a native species to East Texas. And I did have those sent off and tested, and they came back. One of them came back as non-human primate. One of them came back as 100% human, and the other one came back as nothing. There was not any viable, DNA or anything on it that could not be extracted. And from the hair appeared to be something along the lines of human being, just by the way it looked, but you couldn't say because it didn't have any medulla or whatever they call it on it. It couldn't. No DNA could be extrapolated from it, I guess is what they would say.
Right. Well, I know I'm like you. Deer season's deer season, and I'm squatching, hard afterwards. But to be honest, I want to know, have you had any hair-raising experiences on the deer stand? I've had more when I was actually hunting than I did, after deer season was over with. And have you run into anything while you were actually out there, sitting on the stand?
I've had, of course, noises galore. I'm sitting on the stand, and it got to the point where they would know whenever I was on the stand and would come fairly close because they were curious, and within 50, 60 yards, and I would hear them talking back and forth, and people say, well, how do you know they were talking? And I'm like, well, when you hear a barred owl hoot, and then 5 seconds after the barred owl hoots, you hear a red bird over here, and then the owl makes noises again, then the red bird, and the owl and the red bird are going back and forth at each other. That doesn't happen in the wild.
That doesn't happen. No.
They don't communicate with each other like that in the wild. So you've got something that's communicating, or you're sitting there and you hear a fox, in the gully below you, and the fox barks down here, and then you hear a rooster that shouldn't be in the middle of the woods to begin with, and like you were saying earlier, someone was saying about, the calls that would kind of morph into a different call. You're sitting there and you hear, say the rooster, it's, and it goes from, it goes straight from a rooster right straight into a coyote.
Right.
And, you're sitting here going, man, that is one bad rooster.
Exactly.
I don't want to be, I don't have a big enough gun to shoot that 800-pound rooster. But while I'm sitting on the stand, I hear this, Now, one time I was squirrel hunting down in the Sabine River bottom, and on private property, my land. There's not supposed to be anybody in there but me. And I saw this guy walking through the woods about 70, 80 yards away from me. Well, I whistle at him, try to get his attention because I want this cat to know I'm in the woods, I don't want him shooting me by accident. And I whistle, turns around, looks at me, and I wave at him. And I'm like, man, what is this guy hunting? He's wearing a ghillie suit or something. And so I wave at him. And he looks at me, and he turns around, and he starts walking off more hurriedly. Well, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, this cat's trespassing. I'm fixing to go catch him. I'm fixing to file some charges on this guy. And so I'm thinking if he's in here wearing a ghillie suit, he's probably deer hunting. He's poaching deer off of my land. So after him I go, and I can't get up on him. And I'm traveling through the woods at a fairly good clip. And I remember I got pretty close, and I could see I was probably about 40 or 50 yards. And I'm like, this guy is he's wearing some kind of a big suit, And then it clicked, and I'm like, holy crap. You know, because I was in hunting mode at that time. I wasn't in Bigfoot mode. I was after a trespasser, and then it clicked, and it clicked because I was dead behind him, and I got that smell. That smell
Can
hit
you
my nose
describe the
immediately.
smell that you smelled? Because I'm curious if they smell like the ones that I smell.
Well, anybody that's been in any river bottom, whether it's Sulphur River bottom, whether it's Sabine River bottom, it doesn't matter. You have run into gumbo mud before. That silty, gray, soupy gumbo mud that smells like it makes sewage smell good. And that's the smell.
Terrible.
That's the smell. Yeah, I'm serious. I mean, it makes raw sewage smell like, you know, ambrosia. I mean, I don't know, but it's that old gumbo mud. It's that decaying leaf litter that is mixed in with the silt and the mud and just all the nastiness and the best way to describe it, it smells like a rotten egg that has been mixed with toilet water, that has been mixed with rotten leaves, that has been mixed with rotten fish guts.
Oh. So the ones down in this particular, in Nacogdoches County, the ones that I've encountered here, they smell, it's because they're in this, they're in the river, and it's a rotten vegetated smell, but it smells like cow manure, sort of, like a zoo animal. It's an animal smell like a wet dog, but it's got a manure smell. I have smelt it like when I've been down at old ponds and stuff like that. It was the vegetation is rotted but
especially if you go near a pond that does what's called the bottom turning over on a pond.
Yes.
You get that smell of where the silt comes from the bottom to the top. That's the smell.
Mhm. Yeah. So I guess it's about the time.
That's them, and you know, and I'm chasing this thing, and that smell hits my nose, and immediately I go, bingo, you moron! You know, you're not chasing Johnny Trespasser, you're chasing Mr. Biggie Foot, and I guess at that point in time, I stopped, and it was like when I stopped, it stopped, and it turned around, and it was like looking at me like, come on, man, we're not going to play anymore? Because it turned around and it looked at me. I'm 40 yards from it, and it turns around and looks at me. And I'm looking at it, and, of course, I'm huffing and puffing. I mean, I'm a big fat guy. You know, I'm huffing and puffing. And it's turned around looking at me, and then it just turns around. And I never will forget the creek was right there. And it took one step and went off the one side of the creek and landed on the other side of the creek. There was a little sandy little bar out there. Well, the creek wasn't very wide, maybe 8-10 feet wide. But I remember it just took one step and of course I made my way over to where it stepped off the creek bank. And I'm looking at this and I'm going, I would break both of my legs if I took that step.
How tall do you think it was?
I have never seen any of the big Bigfoot creatures that everybody claims. I've never, and I've even written a couple of papers on how I personally don't believe in the 15-foot tall Bigfoots. I don't. Now you get closer to within human proportions, 8 feet or less, I think is totally believable, totally viable. The ones that I've seen have all been 6.5 feet or less. Have not seen any over 6.5 to 7 feet. You know, misjudging height on something is very easy. Something could be 7 feet tall, and you could say it was 6.5. You know, that's kind of a neither here nor there. You know, getting 6 inches off. But when you go to talking about a creature being 15 feet tall and probably weighing 2,000 pounds, that creature would have to eat 90 pounds of food a day to maintain a body mass of that size. And in
I've
East
never
Texas,
heard
there's
a
just
story
not
of them
enough.
being that tall.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, well, we
There's
got
a
12
lot
footers up here.
We've been on the air
There's
for
a lot,
7 years, and we've never had a story yet. One being 15 feet tall.
Oh, I've had people come to me and say that they've seen them, 15 foot and over, and I just don't go there. I mean, that just. Now, I'm talking primarily here in East Texas. I'm not speaking of up north. I'm not speaking anywhere else, because if you get into a place where there's a lot of edible vegetation, there's a lot of fruit, there's a lot of things that they can eat year-round, I could say, that their size could be, especially their girth, could be a lot more than they are here. But, in East Texas, in the summertime, it gets hot enough at a certain point that everything that's edible is dead, except for right around the rivers and streams. But for the most part, everything edible is dead. And you got to hunt down enough hogs or deer or whatever to maintain that much of a girth. But if you give them more of a human size, like I said, when I say human size, we got to remember that, humans readily nowadays come in 7+ foot tall basketball players down to, 2 foot 5 inch dwarves. So, it would be nothing for something to be, 7, 8 feet tall and weigh 3, 4, maybe even 450, 500 pounds and survive on 2 or 3 pounds of food a day, which would be relatively easy for them to get.
Right.
So if you take the, extreme range of size out of the equation and put them in that 8 foot here in East Texas. When I'm speaking, I don't mean to offend anyone where they're at. Everything I'm speaking of is here in East Texas, because I have not been to Pennsylvania. I have not been to Washington State, Oregon. I've not been to any of those places researching, so I will not say what they do or do not have. But here where I research, everything I'm finding is 8 foot or less.
And the tracks are indicating about that size as well, right?
The largest track that I've cast is 13 inches from toe to heel.
Wow. What kind of equipment do you take out? Do you take any equipment out, or you just basically go out and try to experience? What is it you do exactly when you go out there?
I try to keep some really good high-resolution cameras, and I wish that we could still get film cameras and things like that, because even at 24 megapixels, they still don't take as good a picture as an old film camera does. But I try to take the highest resolution cameras that I can get. I have a couple of 20 and a couple of 24 megapixel digital cameras. I have a couple of GoPro type cameras that I take out with me. I have a lot of game cameras with the highest resolution I can get on them. I have a couple of night vision cameras. I have basically night vision binoculars, things like that. Just basically anything you can buy online relatively inexpensively. Because,
what about recording? Do you do any recording for audio? I don't do a whole lot. And it's just like, when I first got into this, I made a lot of plaster casts of tracks and things, and now I rarely ever make a plaster cast. I don't either.
Because
isn't that strange?
They prove nothing. They don't prove anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, not only that, but they're very aware that you're doing it. And I've come across, now this is honest to God happened to me, I've come across great tracks. Go home, get the plaster, come back, and the track's been obliterated.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like somebody took a stick and just scratched it out.
Well, I have found that since I have been doing less, I've been experiencing more.
Absolutely. The only thing I found that's they don't seem to mind is the recording. They don't seem to mind the recording. They're very curious about it. And they'll go up and mess with the microphone and walk around it and breathe and do all the things they do. But they don't seem to mind that.
I've heard some good ones.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
I was just saying I've heard some really good recordings.
Yes. Yes.
And to people like us, they mean a lot. You hear a recording and you hear things in the recording that other people don't hear. Because immediately my mind, as analytical as it is, I go to, okay, what known animal in the woods could be making those sounds in that microphone? And I systematically eliminate every animal that I know is in that area. And if I have to resort to my books and even look up that county, that particular area, and see, go to, what lives in that particular neck of the woods. And then I'll go, okay, well, it wasn't this, it wasn't this, it wasn't this. And eventually you will say, well, that's not any known animal in those woods.
I have learned
and then
more
you're like,
from recording. I don't know. I've been doing that for 15 years, and that's what I do, is the audio, because I will, when you're listening to hours and hours and hours, and then you hear something approaching, then you hear it retreating, and then you hear it approaching again, and then you hear it doing things, and you know that it's got to be a Sasquatch, because nothing else would do something like that. I mean, no other animal would hang around the microphone all night long. And so I learned
and what's so great about doing what we do?
About it.
What's so great about doing this? I was just saying, what's so great about doing this is there is no right way and there is no wrong way. However you are doing it, that's your way of doing it, and you know what? That's awesome. You're getting your results. You're getting your validation for what you're doing, and you're loving it. And that makes it the right way to do it. I don't like listening to people. If you ever
make it work, you won't do it. If you ever make it a work and not something you enjoy.
I don't like hearing people tell somebody you're doing it the wrong way, or this is how you've got to do it. If you want to be a real researcher, well, guess what? If you're out in the woods and you're looking for Bigfoot, you're just as much a real researcher as Jeff Meldrum is. You're as much a real researcher as I am, as anybody else is. You know what? Just because somebody has been on a couple of TV shows doesn't mean jack crap. All that means is there's a few more people that might know who they are, because I've been on TV shows with people that couldn't find their butt with a flashlight and a 5-party search crew.
How did they get on TV then? That's what I want to know.
But the thing is, it's all about who you know and not what you know.
Oh, absolutely. That's
the Bigfoot community
there are a few,
in general.
Well, there are a few people out there that I think the world of that are very close friends of mine. Ken Gerhard being one of them, Lyle Blackburn, being another one. And those guys are genuine, and they are as real as it comes. And they don't even get the recognition that some of these, what I call charlatans, get. And,
I love your choice of words.
I try to be really nice about it, because if I said what I really wanted to say about them, you'd have to bleep me out. And I don't believe in being that rude.
Right.
I just
We're
don't
from the
like
South,
being rude.
we were raised better than that. That's our race.
But I've consulted on many television shows. I've been on television shows, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at these producers and these directors going, really? I'll give you, for instance, I was turned down for the $10 million Bigfoot Bounty TV show. because I would not lie. I made it all the way to the end of the screening process, and the guy told me, he said, Jeff, we love you, and we really want you on the show. We've got a couple of questions for you to just finalize all this stuff. He said, in the effort to make good television, if we needed you to, let's just say something that wasn't entirely true, how would you feel about that? I said I wouldn't do it. I will not compromise my morals and my integrity and my good name
and your
for
reputation.
Anyone.
Yes.
For anyone. I will not sacrifice these things just so you can make a good TV show. We appreciate it. We'll be in touch. Then they contacted me again, and they said, you know, you're not really right for our show. You're not really going to fit in. But we would like to hire you to come on and maybe go out in the woods and put some evidence out that is not Bigfoot evidence, but to see if we can hoax our contestants. And I saw the writing on the wall here. They're going to edit this stuff to where the evidence that I was planting, they were going to be able to find it, and they were going to edit it to where it looked like they were finding real evidence. And I said, so you're going to tell people up front from day one that this is hoaxed evidence? And they were like, well, at some point we'll tell them.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I was like, no. I don't think I want my name involved with that.
Thank you. Good for you, Jeff.
Yeah, and I mean they got these people on the TV show. They did this $10 million Bigfoot bounty, and which is so awesome because if you think about it, I could have said I have a $100 million Bigfoot bounty because one, odds are you're never going to be able to pay. You're never going to have to pay that money out. Two, if just so happens that one of these contestants who don't know their rear end from nothing does find and actually get a real Bigfoot, then you own the rights to that creature because they've signed their life away in order to be on the show. Because even if they find Bigfoot, they don't own the rights to the footage, the rights to the animal, the rights to anything. The network owns it. So it's going to be worth billions of dollars. And so, yeah, we'll hand out that $100 million to you. It would be no big deal. So, you know, I laughed, and you know, I've had, you know, several other shows, a few that I've been on, and, you know, it's always been, I've been like, look, you want me to sign your contract, but let me tell you about my contract. If you make me look like a fool in any way, shape, or form, you are going to put yourself in an actionable position. And I want you to sign this document that I've had my lawyer print up that says that if you belittle me or make me look like a fool in any way, shape, or form, you will be liable. And some shows have signed it, and I haven't had a problem. And some shows that have wanted me on there have not signed it. And if they refuse to sign it, I know what their intentions were to begin with.
Well, that's absolutely right. Because, you know, that was a big problem back years ago, and I guess it still is. You know, you think you're putting out a good product, but by the time they put it on the cutting table and it goes on the air, you're looking at it and they've made you look like a complete idiot, and they take everything you say out of context. And
exactly.
I've seen it. I've seen it. That's why I refuse to go on any kind of show, because with my accent, oh my goodness, they could make me look like a dumb hillbilly.
You know, I was scared of that. Yeah. I was really scared of that whenever I did Finding Bigfoot. I was scared of that, but I sat down with the producers. I sat down with the Animal Planet representatives, and I told them, you know, I said, look, I said, I do not have the best track record with Matt Moneymaker. He and I have had words in the past. I have invited him to a country-style butt whooping. And I said, and honestly, if he mouths off at me, I'm gonna punch him in the throat. And I mean, I'll deal with the consequences later. But you know, just so y'all know, if he belittles me or talks to me or makes me look like a fool in any way, shape, or form, I'm gonna punch him. That's just how it works here in East Texas. And you know, they were like, we assure you that nothing like that's gonna happen. And you know, I was like, okay. And sure enough, when the finished product come out, I was very pleased with it. You know, they treated me well. I didn't have a problem with anyone. I probably didn't say 5 or 6 words to Matt during the whole 7 or 8 days of filming. Me and Bobo hung out together the whole time. I love Bobo. He is he's a great individual. He is not the lumbering fool that they make him out to be. He is a highly intelligent man. Yes. He is a very highly intelligent man. And that's the character he plays, basically. You know, is what they put on the air. I spent time with Cliff. You know, Cliff is an awesome guy. He's a very nice man. He very and Bobo and I, we kind of stayed off to ourselves and talked. Renee.
What do you think of Renee?
She's not a very nice person, but that's just how she is. She was not rude. Well, now I say that. Now, she was not rude to me in any way. She wasn't. She just did not
very
speak.
Warm. She's not a warm person.
She just, you know, just not a very personable person, and nothing against her. I can't say anything bad about her. Like I said, other than the fact that, you know, I mean, she just wasn't nice like I'm used to people being nice. Being from the South, you know, you're used to people, you know, come on in, let me pour you a glass of iced tea.
Well, and she's from South Dakota,
nice.
You know, so she has a kind of a different personality right there anyway.
Right, and you know, I worked for quite a while in North Dakota, and in Minot, North Dakota, and I'm going to tell you what, I can understand why people are not that happy and are kind of in a bad humor all the time, because I was up there in May, and there was 6 inches of snow on the ground in May.
I know, and it's just the way they are up there. You know, you'll go up and go, hi, how are you doing? What? Get in here. You know, that's the way they all talk, just like that. People up there, you know, there were people up there, of course, being from the South, I talk to everybody. You know, I don't meet strangers. And, you know, I'm up there and I'm going, you know, how are you? You walk in a store and people are walking out of the store and you go, hey, how you doing? And they're looking at you like, is he trying to steal my wallet or something? What's going on here? And that's so true.
I never forget, I walked into a store and the girl behind the counter was in there. And I said, sweetie, give me a can of Copenhagen snuff. And she looked at me, she said, what did you say? And I said, give me a can of Copenhagen. And she's like, are you speaking English?
Oh, Lord.
And I'm like, excuse me, hang on. Hey there, how are you? Could you give me a can of that Copenhagen? You know, and she looked at me like she wanted to cut my head off because I was making fun of the way she talked then. But, you know, I'm like, I don't know what to do here. I mean, do I point and grunt or what? I mean, I'm speaking English. My accent is just different. You know, surely you can understand the words that are coming out of my mouth. You know, I mean, needless to say, I finally got my can of snuff so I could go to work. And, you know, but it was a daily chore going in the restaurant to order dinner. You know, we've got to where we were trying to find buffets. That way we didn't have to say anything to anybody. Just go fill our plates and eat.
Oh, God.
Bless their hearts. But, you know, I mean,
we know what bless
funny.
your heart means in East Texas.
Yeah. Bless your little old heart.
And bless your pea-picking heart.
Yeah.
Well, I actually got in a fight in North Dakota with a professional hockey player because we were the hotel we were staying in. And actually, it's the only hotel in the town. We were staying in a place called Beulah, North Dakota. And anyway, I'm sitting here, and the guy comes over, and he's drunk, and he falls all over the top of me, and he says, "You want to play some 9-ball?" And I'm going, "Man, I'm trying to eat my supper. You know, I don't want to play anything with you. Go away." And about the third time he came over and fell on top of me, you know, asking me to play 9-ball, you know, I was kind of upset at this point in time. You know, coming from Texas, you don't touch me, you know. You don't walk up and touch me in any way, shape, or form, you know. And I finally, the third time, I told him, I said, "Buddy, don't put your hands on me. I mean, just to let you know, I'm about ready to knock you out." And he backs up and he starts telling his name. "I'm so-and-so. I'm a professional hockey. I play professional sports," is actually what he said. And I said, "What do you play?" He said, "I play hockey." I said, "I thought you said you played sports."
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, up north up there, I mean, hockey is like, if you say something bad about hockey, you might as well say something bad about the Pope, you know. So
You'd have been talking ugly about the mama.
Yeah, I mean, he squares off, and he's ready to fight. And I've seen 2 or 3 of his buddies, and I'm like, "Man, y'all better get him. He's fixing to get introduced to Texas in a hard way." And they were like, "He's a professional hockey player. He's tough." And needless to say, the professional hockey player was minus 5 teeth before he left the bar.
Oh, my gosh.
And that was my funny story about North Dakota, though. I mean, the guy, you know, "I'm a professional hockey player." You know, really? So, anyhow, I don't know what that's got to do with Bigfoot, but hey.
Well, we're down to.
I just like telling funny stories.
I tell you what, I enjoyed it tremendously. And you know what? I've really enjoyed having you on this show. It's been great.
Well, thank you.
And I know I probably laughed a lot and everything like that, but I couldn't help it. You're very amusing.
Hey, I hope so. I want people to laugh because you know what? If you don't enjoy talking about cryptozoology, about Bigfoot, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, and if it's not fun, and if you can't make it fun, you might ought to re-examine it and maybe go do something else because, you know, I do this because it's fun. Well, I mean, hey, I'll go chase ghosts with people. I don't care. You know, I mean, I do have a degree in theology, and I am an ordained minister, and I've studied demonology. If you want to go chase ghosts, I'll go with you. I'm just not leading the pack when it goes to chasing ghosts. That's not my forte. But, you know, I'll go with you. It's fun. I'll go with you. But, you know, I love it all. But I want to have fun. I would rather be out in the woods chasing Bigfoot than in a bar drinking beer. I would rather be in the woods chasing Bigfoot than sitting on the couch eating potato chips and getting fatter than I already am. You know, I mean, I'm having fun and I'm out there doing something and I'm not hurting anybody. And there's tens of thousands of people all across this country that are doing the same thing. And you know what? People ought to not be belittling them. They ought to not be putting them down. They ought to not be calling them crazy. Because these are the same people that every day teach your kids in school. These are the same people that, you know, you borrow money from at the bank. These are the same people that do your taxes. These are the same people that fix your lights, fix your car, or whatever. These people aren't crazy. They're not nut jobs. They're just people that want to go out and have a good time.
Amen. That is so true. That was a great ending. That was a great ending. One last thing, and if you can make it quick, because we're down to about a minute and a half. Can you tell our new people out there what's the best advice that you can give them?
The best advice that I can give people is get out in the woods and take a camera, take a lot of pictures, get a digital camera, that way you can fill an SD card or fill 3 or 4 SD cards, take pictures. Tracks, do everything, learn the animal sounds, get online, download anything you can to listen to animals, learn them, get some Audubon books, the Audubon Society, learn what animals are in your area and stick to what's in your area. You don't need to learn what animals are in Pennsylvania if you live in Texas. So stick to your area and become as much of an expert on the wildlife, and everything else will fall into place.
Great advice, Jeff. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Thank you for having me.
I know we really, it was our honor, and you were very pleasant to have on, and I hope that we treated you well.
Of course you did.
Well, everyone, that's a wrap, and we'll see you next Thursday. We're going to have a gentleman on called Jimmy Hayes from Pennsylvania. So, everyone, come back and see us. Let's all say good night now. Good night,
everybody.
Good night.
Night. Night, Jim Bob.
Good night.
Hey, it's Flo, and this is my impression of a less than ideal job candidate. Is the owner here? Oh, you're the owner! Whatever. So I can only work Monday through Wednesday, sometimes. And I gotta get out at 2 p.m. sharp. Band practice, you know? We're big on covers. Like how Progressive covers both businesses and commercial auto. Anyway, sorry I'm late, but being late's sort of my thing.
All the coverage your business needs at ProgressiveCommercial.com.
Resume? Nah, I don't really do those. I just like to come in and let my personality shine.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.